Well, hello and welcome. Well, today we are going to go to school. We're going to go to school on one major item which bothers us in this part of the world. You see, in most countries, they have alternative sources of powering the country. With us, it's mainly petrol, diesel, fuel, basically. You know, other countries have electric trains and then that supplements it. But with us, it's petrol. And anytime petrol prices, when I say petrol, I'm talking about diesel and everything, goes up, it seems to affect everything. There are times when even world prices go down and we don't enjoy it. It's sometimes blamed on the cedi, sometimes blamed on subsidies not being paid, blamed on everything, but at the end of the day, you and I, the consumer, get to the pump and we feel as if we're being stinged. And anyway, very recently, well, some taxes have been reduced and therefore there's some 3-4% that's been shaved off the prices, all well and good. One is asking, when will the cedi devalue more for this 2-3% just vanish into thin air? And so we're just going to find out what at all is happening at the pump that you and I don't seem to have, not make petrol prices a worry. I mean, there are countries where the last thing you worry about is fuel because you just know you can't simply afford it. But here it's really a major part of your income, really major part of your income. I mean, 100 Ghana cedis and you have 5 gallons and half the week is gone. What's happening with fuel prices? My name is Nanan Sakwa, the fourth Kwamwedu Basahini, and also your host. When I come back, I'll introduce my guest and we'll start finding out what's happening in the industry and how it can be resolved. Don't go. Thank you very much for staying. Drop in crude oil world market indexes, and you're asking, will they affect us down here? Well, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers are here to talk us through what this industry is. Indeed, it's quote unquote really mafioso industry. You must be in it to understand what goes on there. And I have in the studio Duncan Amo. Duncan, you're welcome.
Nana, let me say thank you and Happy New Year. I'm not sure we met this year.
No, we haven't. So Happy New Year to you, brother.
Some of us admire you from a distance.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure sitting with you today.
Well, we're honored to have you here to school us, to school us. Duncan, I mean, it seems as if there's a cartel behind, behind the petrol industry, and we who just go to the pump, to buy your gallon, it's just too much. And today I want us to try and demystify this industry. We've had so many excuses, currency differences, this and that and this and that. So I want us to try and demystify it. But good news, supposedly, is that prices are now coming down because some taxes have been removed. Are you in favor? Because there's another school of thought that says, look, we needed those taxes to pay for our fuel debt, and therefore it should have been there.
Nana, let me start by thanking you once again. Fuel issues, like you said, becomes a headache for Ghanaians every now and then. And if you sit where some of us would sit, the complaints you keep getting in the local parlance, yato petrol mo. And people don't seem to understand why it has to go up, why it would have to come down. I'm sure if the Ghanaian had his way, fuel should sell for even 2 cedis a gallon. I'm sure that would be affordable. But there are a few fundamental issues that if you look at fuel pricing, you cannot run away from. And so basically, what would inform whether we buy fuel for 1 cedi or 2 cedis or 20 Ghana or 18 Ghana? Let me try and break it down as best as possible. Fuel itself, to get petroleum, you would need to go through a lot of difficult work, exploration and production. And so the bigger vessels would sit upstream, go deep into the ground, the belly of the earth, to bring the crude. And then the crude would be transported from the FPSO through an oil vessel or tanker to a refinery. And so it moves from at the refinery, it would now move from the raw state to be processed into either petrol, diesel, jet fuel, kerosene, or other products, the special products. And so the refinery will break it down. Ghana has only one refinery we recognize. There's another one, Platon, but I'm not sure it does much to the system. So
there's another refinery?
Yes, that's a smaller one.
Okay.
Behind the oil refinery in Tema. Fortunately, one that supplies all of us in Ghana is one. And so most of what we consume here is something we bring from outside, finished product. And so you are not buying crude anymore, you are buying the finished product. Now, what happens to the finished product prices? That's where you go to those international indexes like Platts, Argos. Ghana basically is buying from Amsterdam, Rotterdam. And so they deal with those standards, Platts, as they will call it.
Okay.
If Platt goes up, because crude has gone up, it has a direct net effect on the Ghanaian, because we do not determine pricing on the world market. It is determined by such activities as to whether Boko Haram has seized the pipeline, the production in Iraq has been halted because of some explosion here and there, or there's actually oversupply. And you know the economic side of it is when more, you pay less. Yeah. When less, you pay more.
Sure.
And so when there's oversupply, prices will drop on the international market. When demand also seems to meet supply, either halfway or squarely, you find prices rising. But when there's oversupply, there's excess. Because I can buy, if I come to you and say $2, you say no, the next person will give it to me for $1. And so prices continue to drop when there's oversupply. When the same way when supply declines or goes down, you find prices rising. And so the international market price, the world market price, is something Ghana has no control. Absolutely. So whether it goes up or comes down, we do not have a say as a country.
Let me just chip in here, then you can continue. Okay. If TOR had been efficient and we had negotiated, let's say, whatever crude you find from Ghana, we have the first refusal. We'll buy from you. Could we have had any say in the price then?
In order not to leave your viewer halfway, I would wish I could finish
and then we'll come back
briefly, so we can come to TOR quickly. So the first bit you have to worry about is international market price. Like I said, Ghana has no control over. Then you come to the product has gotten to either Tema or Takrady. There's a vessel with oil in it, and so product is already onshore, and then it has to move into either of the tanks from BOS to TOR or any of the private BDC tanks. Now, government says, before you sell this product, I want these taxes to be able to develop. So the first index is world market price and how much they are selling the product itself, which we have no control
about.
Then the second issue comes in as how much government would also want on what you have brought. It's just like direct taxation on any other product. I bring in a car, how much duty government says I should pay. And whatever taxes, if I even sell the car and there's an income tax bit I would have to declare. So those taxes now becomes part of the cost. So that's the second element. And then when the taxes are factored in, products move from one tank to one bulk road vehicle, what we call oil tanker. The trucks that move oil from one point to the
petrol tanker.
Yeah, petrol tanker. And so the tanker moves it to a filling station. Now, at the point of sale, if I brought in the oil from the top, I should be able to tell that, oh, I got this one for a credit of 90 days or 60 days. So normally you would realize that you don't have to pay for the full shipload of product, because sometimes you may not have the financial wherewithal to, pay for all of that. So the suppliers will play with a lot of credit. And so if I have 90-day credit, I anticipate that I'll be able to sell 10,000 metric ton within the next 2-3 months. I should be able to forecast. I bought the product for $1. At the time I bought the product for $1 to a liter. The cedi was 4 cedis square. Now I am going to sell the product at 4 cedis square, because that is how much it cost me to get the product, $1. If within the period the cedi cannot stay at 4 cedi and it might move to 4.2, the challenge therein is that I may sell at 4 cedis, but I will finish, there will be some exchange difference or exchange losses, because I would need to go back to the market, exchange the cedi back to dollar to be able to pay the supplier. And so that is where the cedi dollar issue also becomes quite pivotal. And so when you hear importers talk about cedi is not able to stay, or the cedi's performance is poor, oftentimes Ghanaians will be asking, if the cedi is poor, why should that affect my fuel pricing? It affects it because what they buy and how long it takes them to pay for. If the cedi continues to erode everything, by the time they have to change and pay a supplier, they've run losses. So if you recall, in the not long past history of Ghana, government used to have what we used to call subsidies. So government would say, look, you bought a product for $1. If you sell at $1 at 4 cedi 50 pesos, it will be too high. Sell at 4 cedis, I'll make up for the 50 pesos for you. And so government gives some cushioning to importers and OMCs by absorbing some of the costs that would have been passed on to the consumer. Then we came to a point where we had to decide as a country.
How much fuel do we buy in a month?
In fact, those numbers are staggering. As far as we knew, we are doing almost 14.7 million liters daily. It may have gone up 14.7. Diesel was daily. You are talking of daily figures. And so by the time,
so you multiply that by a month.
By 30, you would probably get a fair idea. And so volumes, they do count in fuel, pricing bit.
So it's a huge market.
It's a huge market.
No, see, the reason why I'm saying that is you just said something. So assuming we buy, don't quote me, let's say $300 million worth of fuel a month.
Yes.
Now, the boys in the industry are now all going to guess that my $300 million how much is a dollar? So they are all now speculating that.
Exactly.
That's a very tricky one. I don't know if I can break it down. So let's say the dollar is a 4 cedis today, and there's $300 million, and we are all guessing that maybe it'll be 320. So I might as well just peg it at 320.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
That's tricky.
In fact, the last time I was on here, I think a week or two ago, one of the easiest things we think the government should be able to do for the importer is to guarantee them the 300 million through Bank of Ghana. Don't go to the open market. Just get us your invoices or receipts of products received within the month. Whatever payments that need to be done to your suppliers, don't go and chase from the open market the same dollar source. Bank of Ghana will give it to you at 4.2 within this month. Then the issue of speculation could be dealt with. Then the issue of the importer not being sure whether by the time I finish selling, it will be at 4.3, and if I go to the open market at 4.3, when I have sold for 4.0, I'll be losing the 0.3. We could curtail that bit if the government could take a bold decision and at least step in to give them a special dispensation as far as oil imports is concerned. Unfortunately, it's a huge chunk. They also will have to continue to the open markets like everybody else does. And imagine the pressure this imports alone. In fact, you quoted the figure right. We are doing about $300 million monthly.
Wow.
In excess of, so meaning daily we are doing about $10 million.
And they are all guessing.
And they all have to go to the open market. We are saying that if the government could come to some, compromise or some agreement with them, it should be fine for them to be able to project that by the end of the month, this is what BOG is giving us the forex for. And so if we even have to sit and guess at 4.4, it won't make sense. So it's 4.2 BOG is given to us. Then they can all come to some safer point where they don't have to run losses. Unfortunately, that system is still not in place. So the cedi dollar interplay becomes an issue for you and I. You see, the ordinary man on the street, the question is, I don't manage the cedi dollar business in the country. And if the cedi is losing value, why should I be the one asked to pay for? And so if you come to the end of the petroleum chain, the end user, the final person, the consumer, is a bit tricky on the consumer. The importer doesn't want to make losses. The OMC wouldn't want to make losses. The government is also looking at its budget.
But Duncan, you know something?
And so the consumer will have to bear it at the end of
We, the consumer, would always hear that, oh, I bought my fuel at $4, and then by the time I finished selling it, it was $4.22 or it was $4.10. I've lost 10. The government should pay. Government should pay. Government. But we never ever hear when you order at 4 and you come and sell at 3.8. Then everybody keeps quiet. We don't hear anything. So what happens then?
You see, that is why if BOG should step in, when there are losses, the government could be able to do something about it. When there are gains, I'm sure they would also be able to do. But as it is, in the previous price control regime, if you remember, not long ago, what happened was the government through the NPA would announce fuel prices. And whether you are Shell, GOIL, Agapet, Petrosol, you would all be forced to sell the products at the same price as quoted by the government.
Because the dollar, the dollar has dropped before.
It drops sometimes. It does drop.
And if we buy fuel every day, so which means these boys, there are certain days that they must be good.
Sometimes, and other times too, they make losses. I can put
No,
on
but
record.
the thing is, we never hear the gains. We only hear the losses.
So let us do something about it so that it's a well-coordinated system where if they are all getting it at 4.2, because the same way somebody might even go to the open market and get a dollar at 4.3 today. Another might go and get it at 4.5. So the cost of business for some of them is quite rough. While some might get 90 days credit, another might be operating a 60-day. And so it's quite rough for them. I think the best way would be for the government to step in through Bank of Ghana and ensure it coordinates those oil imports and the volumes involved.
What would be the disadvantage for the central bank to step in?
The inability to produce the 300 million monthly. Sometimes, you may not always have the central bank have the forex. And so sometimes they would need to fall on the other commercial banks and other points they could get a dollar. That would be the challenge. But if the government could put in place a system, so if you are doing 300, it means the entire year is about 3.6 billion USD. If the government could find a way to make sure those amounts exist for the supplier to be paid at the end of whatever period, I'm sure it would tame the forex issue a bit. But in the absence of that, it looks as though you and I the trotro driver who probably hasn't even gotten tea to drink would have to go, and you go and 2 pesos has been added because the cedi cannot contain the pace of the dollar. So those are the 3 critical issues that affects fuel pricing. Now, if you go to the price build-up proper.
Let me just acknowledge Seno, and then you land on your hello, Senor. Hello, Senor.
Yeah, hello.
Good, Senor. If you hold on just for me, just 1 second, I get Duncan to land, and then I'll come to you. Okay, so let me let you land on your point.
So what I was saying is, if there is a well-coordinated system, the end user might be protected a bit. If there isn't, what happens is a deregulated market. The end user cannot force an OMC to sell at 2 cedis or 1 cedi. It would also have to be able to stay in business. So we are only asking that sometimes the government should be able to make certain guarantees so that we do not bear the shock of you waking up and the cedi has jumped to from 1 cedi to 4 cedis or 1 cedi to 3 cedis, and all of that effect is passed on to the trotro person. We think that something could be done to mitigate some of these increases that we have seen in recent past. And I'm sure there will be other things to discuss further when you're done with my brother Senor.
Let me see if do I still have Senor on the phone? No, I hear beeping in my ear, so probably the line has dropped. Do I still have Senor on the phone? No, I don't think so. Okay, no, I don't think so. I mean, at the moment, we're doing a liter for what, about 4.2, 4.3 a liter?
It's it used to be 4.3 to 4.36. Today, thanks to world market prices going down, a couple of OMC, some of the major ones, have reduced prices. What I checked with GOIL earlier was that they had moved from 4.32 to now 4.26. If you do the computations, about 1.36% reduction.
GOIL has been a godsend for becoming an OMC for us in Ghana.
Unfortunately, a section of the industry would disagree. But for some of us, they serve a very good use to the economy, to the people, and to the deregulation system. If you recall, there have been occasions where fuel prices have had to go up. You check from some of the other OMCs, and the pricing that you find from them sometimes is not very funny. GOIL comes in with maybe a much lower figure, and you find a lot of them coming to, I mean, the base where GOIL is. That in itself is good, but it's also a challenge to deregulation. You would expect deregulation to throw to the people one critical thing: competition between the OMCs, such that
Pricing war.
Pricing war.
Well, we like a price war.
If GOIL says I'm doing today 4.260, let someone, I mean, say I'm doing 4.000, you know, then we can say, oh, GOIL, you have not been efficient. But unfortunately, it's beginning to look as though we all gravitate towards the same, you know,
so can you imagine if we didn't have GOIL, because GOIL has become like a Ghana representative, and thankfully they are big enough, you know, to go. If we didn't have GOIL,
we couldn't sustain deregulation. That is
well, they would
quite
have. They would have like cartel. They will hold you to ransom.
You see, in places like Mexico, where deregulation works for them, you would need a strong national player. So deregulation is a deregulated system, but the government still keeps some controls through the national player. And so you would realize that for last year, some of us were even accusing GOIL that they were being subsidized by government. Sometimes it's not the case. Sometimes they are able to operate based on volumes, the numbers they have. There are times you speak to them and you get the impression there's a 2 pessoa variance, but they will absorb it because they have volumes. So even if there's a 2 pessoa and they themselves, as an OMC, has a margin of, say, 7 pesos, if they absorb the 2, it would eat into their margin to come to 5. But because they have volumes, 5 is enough for them. And so at each point in time, if the government will sustain deregulation, the national player would have to be strengthened. And that is why, for some of us, sometimes we talk and we mention GOIL as though
I'm very GOIL biased. I am seriously GOIL.
The other OMCs would naturally come after you and wouldn't be too happy.
I'm very GOIL biased. And indeed, when deregulation came, they've proven to be a good rock for us.
I agree with you. In fact, for us, there have been times you would find quite, astonishing prices at the pumps. And I can say this, it's not once, it's not twice, a lot of occasions. Until you find a national player coming with a price, then most of them will now drop back to So you ask if it was possible to drop to those levels,
So
why did you go so way up for people to be inconvenienced that way? But I think in all of this, the discussion about TOR, as to whether TOR's operation would have been able to reduce fuel prices for all of us. Ghana has been very lazy. Let me be quick to point out. If you take the difference between crude, the raw product and the finished product, you would find what they call the tolling arrangement. So if a refinery processes crude at say $10, it means that if crude is at 40, the finished product could do 50. So if you had even 2 refineries in Ghana that could supply the system, they could produce for BDCs to buy and sell to OMCs, that chain could work. What happens is that some of the harsh figures we may be getting from international markets, we could control that here. Because like you said, Ghana also produces oil to some extent. Is there a way, a portion of what we produce? Today we are doing about 120, 130,000 barrels daily.
I mean, it's not enough, but it could cushion something.
No, it is enough. Oh. In fact, if you compare that, we are doing about 90,000 consumption daily, and we are able to produce about 120, 130. What it means is that we could even get, some surplus of 40,000 that could be exported. Unfortunately, much of what we produce goes out there to the international markets, who would now refine and bring the finished product at
the story of our life.
So if we could have a way to say not only TOR, because TOR's capacity today as we speak, the last time I checked was around 45,000, meaning even at full operating capacity, they can only handle half the market. It means that no matter what it is, TOR cannot, control the market. You will still need to bring products from out there to be able to augment what is in the system. Since the 60s, that TOR came into operation. As a country, we have not even made any effort. Yet, Dangote is building a refinery in Nigeria so huge. They have a couple of refineries. I do not think refineries are such a financial burden, unless, of course, they are not run well. If you are running, a system or a processing center that has a tolling, arrangement, just bring crude. Let me refine and charge you $5 or $10 a metric. At the end, you would find that our refineries here, the only bits you hear are losses and debts because of the way we've handled them. We think that if we would have to invest in another refinery, let's do so. If we have to negotiate properly with the likes of Tallow and the other bigger players who are producing oil in Ghana, to be the first, buyers of our own crude, we should be able to do so that locally, we might be able to even determine the international pricing element. Because what we produce here, one of the long-term projects that COPEC would like to initiate is that bit called African Pricing Index. Today, if you go to the oil business, you only find WTI, the American standard, Brent, the African itself does not have any system to be able to say the cost of producing 1 barrel of oil in Africa is about $40, right? So $40 a barrel is okay in Africa. We do not have, that pricing index in Africa. One of the things we would like to do, going from medium to long term, will be to be able to have that African pricing index in place. Because you have about 23 countries across Africa today producing oil. But most of what we produce have to be determined by outsiders.
I hear Senor is back on the phone. Senor Jose, who's the CEO, Chamber for Bulk Oil Distribution Companies. Senor, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nana.
Good.
To your viewers.
Sure. The line dropped there. We're discussing the fuel prices and all the technicalities that go with it. But I think one thing I have for you is the price difference. When you buy your product at, let's say, $4 and you sell it, and by the time you're going to collect your money, the dollars are now maybe $4.10, and therefore there's a 10 peso margin. So Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Is it better now?
I think so.
Okay. I was wondering, there's always there's a few debt where we owe so many billions because the CD is fluctuating. But Senator, we never hear anything when let's say you bring the thing in at $4 and then by the time you're going the prices are dropped. We don't hear anything from you guys. Because sometimes the dollar does go down, and therefore you should gain a bit more.
Not necessarily the case, Nana.
Okay.
I think that the pricing structure continues to be quite a myth for many. And maybe we have to invest a lot more in trying to demystify petroleum pricing. It's
Sure.
not supposed to be that complicated. You don't really have that situation where people bring forward and are escaping the market with something else. No, not necessarily the case. What you have with us as BDCs, we trade with world market benchmarks. And most of these benchmarks are tied to various periods, which we call windows. So for a given period, the averages within that window is what you use to apply for your pricing. And everything we do is done backward. It's not actually done going forward. Prices may be booked going forward, but pricing is done backward. So today is 16. Most of the prices of the products that are reflecting on the market today are supposed to be a reflection of the average market prices that existed between the 27th of February and the 11th of March. Okay, so almost every time, pricing for products is done after fact. So we are not really bringing it here and trying to escape the market, and then you don't hear of us. As a matter of fact, we still have a lot of debt that government has to clear as a result of the activities of government in pricing prior to the deregulation era. We have quite a very huge amount to collect. Government is working with us, and there's no need to really hit it too much when we are all working out structures. It's not as though we are sitting somewhere because we are belly full, as my Nigerian folks will say. People don't want to talk. You hear of us only when not the case at all.
No, let me try it. Because you make a 2-week projection, so you bring your stocking and you guess that in 2 weeks the dollar should be approximately this amount or that amount. If come the 2 weeks the dollar has dropped, I mean your projection is better than what you projected for, then you mark up, you make a bit more windfall.
Okay, if on the FX side, that's also not the case that you actually project for 2 weeks. All right, trading runs often for full cargoes, a whole cycle of 90 days. And that 90 days is a 3-month cycle. So the projection is just to let you know, projections that were made by most traders for the very first half of February, hoping that by the 60th day, when collections are made from oil marketing companies, exchange rates will be at a certain point. They were cleared after 1 week. They were all rendered useless after just a week. Okay, so it's a trading cycle. With trading, you need to wait for your full cycle. There are times you gain, there are times you would lose. At the end of the year, you'll be able to tell your actual position. One thing that consumers need to know for a fact is that today, the prices that you actually pay at the pump are about 5% lower than what government would have been pricing if government was in charge of petroleum prices. That's if government did not want to have any form of subsidies whatsoever or minimize its exposure to subsidies. That's how far deregulation has brought us. And that means people have sacrificed margin, people have found better ways to negotiate, people have found better ways to improve value, and all people are actually experiencing real losses to just stay afloat within the market. But there's been a number of things that have happened in this market, especially in the past year, and probably a bit into this year. Probably after this first quarter of 2017, the real market will show. Government was subsidizing GOIL, all right, through BOS, indirectly, to provide unfair or outcompete the private sector.
Oh,
So
so are you sure they will be subsidized?
I'm not. I'm telling you. I mean, you will be releasing our industry report, a report next week Friday at our AGM, and some of these facts will be made available. If you know the industry, you know how the industry actually works. Industry margins have been at an all-time low as far as the BDC era is concerned, about 50%, and in some cases lower than used to be what that was approved by the MPA. Nobody's out there trying to rip anybody, not at all.
I'm a big GOIL bias, so let me try and defend GOIL a little bit.
No, that's fine. Don't worry. Feel free. You have been enjoying free subsidies, but not directly, but indirectly.
Look, you see, won't you say that if GOIL wasn't there, the other BDCs could have held us to ransom, because then they can determine that, look, we're selling at this price.
Hold on.
Yes.
Having GOIL played a role that it's playing today is a concept and construct mooted by us. I mean, as a chamber, we've been the lead advocates for the price liberalization. Government was very uncomfortable about the risk it was exposed to the private sector. It was our advice, and we've been talking and hammering this since 2013, actively in meetings, committees that I partly chaired, that I partly wrote reports for, the presentations made directly by myself to the presidency, to the vice presidency a number of times, and the ministry many times, to let them realize there was a way to ensure that the private sector does not rip the consumers. That's if that was their concern. It was always our opinion that that was not an option, because you have currently 42 BDC. Who is going to
Ghanaian player in there would be a suicide.
No, I'm going to let you know something. 42 people. Before deregulation, Anna, BDCs were undercutting themselves. They were undercutting themselves without GOIL. GOIL was a major beneficiary of those undercutting. But GOIL never transferred that benefit to the consumer. Shell didn't, Total didn't. Most of them never did. All right, before deregulation. Because there was fierce competition at the BDC level way before. But to make policy, public policy makers feel comfortable, we mooted that idea that, look, let GOIL become also a BDC. Let it also keep playing its role as a major retailer. GOIL has 20% of filling station outlets in the country. It easily positions GOIL as a market price maker. So if GOIL is fixing prices fairly, you'll be able to tell whether the private sector is fixing prices unfairly. Unfortunately, contrary to what the law, the NPA Act expects of every player in there, government was covertly subsidizing GOIL to outcompete the private sector.
But GOIL has the numbers,
It's
so
not numbers,
they can work with small margins.
No. Hold on. Minus 1 times 1 million is not a positive. Minus 1 times 1 million is not a positive.
No, it's not.
Thank you very much. And the other big player in this market, there are even possibly bigger players prior to GOIL's coming, and there was fierce competition. But GOIL has been there, and we are always happy to have GOIL. And the reason why we wanted GOIL to really play an active role was this. GOIL gives government visibility into the market. But check with the Ministry of Finance, if people there will be honest. In the pricing structure, there's something called the Price Stabilization and Recovery Levy. Government taxes everybody about 10 and 12 pesos per liter. And that's a lot of money that's generated. About 1.7 billion, if I'm not mistaken. That's generated from some of these taxes. A part of this tax was used and paid to BOST as an indirect subsidy, so that BOST can deliver lower prices to GOIL. So even though GOIL had its own BDC license, GOIL hardly traded the whole of 2016. Why? If you have a license and you are a big company like GOIL, why did you not trade?
Was it not because GOIL was a good, was a better paymaster, and therefore Boss preferred to deal with them?
No, not at all. Not Boss. I'm saying GOIL. They have a BDC.
Sure.
You have a BDC just like everybody. So why don't you import your own products? Why do you build your business plan on buying on another BDC? It doesn't make sense. As a BDC, an oil trading company, you should trade.
No,
but if you're only trading, it's only dependent on another. Hold on.
They have shareholders, and they'll take a lesser risk.
No, not that. Thank you very much. Because it was more beneficial, and it was beneficial there because government was running the subsidies through Boss. Then the next thing I'll tell you, the other subsidy is what we call the Boss margin. When the Boss margin was envisaged, it wasn't envisaged for Boss to actually play a role like a BDC. So everybody sort of had to subsidize what Boss does. So when I sell my product in my own infrastructure that I pay my own banks off and Boss is not even involved, I always have to pay Boss.
Well, but because
thank you very much. And do you know how much that is? Do you know how much that is?
How much is it?
100 million cedis a year for doing nothing, even if they do nothing.
What's the issue of Boss? With the issue of Boss, I mean, all the BDCs were putting their stuff, you know, in there, and somehow it had to be maintained. But then,
not at all. Another mistake. Hold on.
Yes.
I mean, allow me probably. I just have to probably walk you a bit more. Well, Goss is not the only one who has the infrastructure. Now, when you use the Boss infrastructure, you pay the same fee, commercial rate, that every other person who is not subsidized by government, subvented by government charges. When you go to the private depot like the Tema Tank Farm, you go to the Tema Fuel Company, you pay the same $12 that Boss will charge. What makes Boss now different? Then secondly, government has policy that is designed to ensure that even if you have your own depot in Accra, if you have to sell in Kumasi, you have to definitely run your products through Boss. It doesn't make too much sense with double handling, but fine, you have to still put it in there. So you still have to pay another $12. Boss doesn't have to pay that $12 twice, but it will charge you $12
per ton.
Per metric ton.
Per metric ton.
You understand? You see, so the structure was never designed eventually to actually promote a very fair and even playing field.
So
if you realize for a while, a bit when government announced that it may not continue with this Boss structure, the GOIL prices shot up a bit higher than the number of pump stations.
I see.
A company like Puma Energy, the gas station Puma, for a good while was actually the lower selling product. But I think somewhere this month, GOIL probably became one of the lowest. But I think frames also may have been a bit better. But you realize that things are now coming home a bit to roost. But GOIL has been a big beneficiary of that policy activity of covertly subsidizing Boss for the advantage of GOIL.
Thank you very much.
We cannot run an industry that way.
Thank you very much. I need to get you in studio so we really talk about this issue because I am interested in it. Well, Duncan, you heard that. I'll let you comment before I even ask you any question.
Indeed, some of us still believe that the position of GOIL is one of national importance. If you look at what deregulation means to us as a country, like I indicated,
is government subsidizing GOIL?
I would have no basis to make such a claim, and indeed it will be quite perilous if I said to say government had put money in there, because like I indicated, they have to be in the middle, and from what I know, they have the volumes to be able to cushion themselves. There are sunk costs that GOIL would probably not have to pay, that others may have to pay. And so if GOIL's operations can be lower, I'm sure their pump prices could be a bit lower. I do not have any basis at all, like I have indicated earlier, to agree or accept or instigate that they have been subsidized. Like I indicated, if you look at the whole Boss arrangement, Boss was actually constructed on the books the financial books of
GOIL.
GOIL. And so invariably it's like GOIL had to pay for busts. And so those tanks you would find that we are using as a national reserve or buffer.
And what, I
those
know
are
for a
things-
fact that when Bost was sold off or taken off, the debt of Bost was left.
It was left
on
on
the books of GOIL.
GOIL. So indeed, like that makes the point a lot more forcefully. They have a lot of sunk costs already taken care of. And so while somebody may pay $5 a metric or $12 for storage, they may have an arrangement that is quite favorable. I am not quite sure, like I've indicated, that government may have to subsidize GOIL because the public has an interest of about 34%. Ordinary Ghanaians have shares in there.
Yeah.
So then government will only be putting money in the pockets of those shareholders. That is why, for some of us, we think that for what they have done, even if it was a subsidy, let me use that advisedly, even if it was a subsidy, we think that it is healthy, even if it was. Because like I've indicated, there have been times you check other OMCs and prices have gone very high. We all wait, GOIL prices will come and others will fall in line one way or the other. They drop to a few pesos below or around. And that tells you that something could have been done by them. So assuming, like you asked, if you take GOIL out of the equation, then there's a problem. Most of them would have gone way, way up than we can actually afford. And so maybe we have become a bit more of GOIL, discussion right now, but they have a key role to play in a deregulated market. And I will continue to impress on any government at all that will want to strengthen deregulation to ensure that the position of GOIL is not weakened. If you do that, you would only throw all of us into a very, deep dungeon.
We'll be in trouble. The other thing with regards to the debt, the government owes that, government owes that. Now again, everybody puts their fuel in the same tank. So you buy and I put in there. I buy, you put in there. You buy, you put in there. So I said I put 10 gallons. You said you put 5. You said you put 20, and then we all go. And so the tank should have 50 gallons in there. After 40 gallons being sold, it's empty. And therefore, there's 10 gallons left that the taxpayer should pay. And this has been a problem which is just all affecting the prices because they keep taxing us to go and try and mitigate all these debt.
You see, there are allowable losses in petroleum transmission, and it is not that huge. They are allowable internationally. What used to persist in previous times, especially with busts, is an arrangement where people would
I think they lost 2 million liters or something.
They lost 14, and then they lost another 4.3. So over 18 million liters was in the books. But again, those things would happen because there's the human, element. If I have 2 million liters and I could supply 3 million for an off-taker, I only need to negotiate with you and say, oh, give me 3 million. My next consignment, I'll put in the 1 million. If I don't bring another consignment, or if the next consignment comes, there's no paper, formal, chances are that the 1 million would now become a loss to you. Although you may have taken some backdoor money, but the company itself will suffer. So some of the things that boss would immediately have to be sure it doesn't revert to are some of these product losses. Because the moment that happens, they become a cost burden on not just the state, but the taxpayer would all have to pay for it.
What should we be paying fairly at the price at the pump today? Estimation.
From what we know, if you do ex-refinery currently around 9.6 Ghana cedis, and you add all taxes, you come to over 19. You can imagine the difference, the variance. Government has done well removing some of the taxes, reducing SPT from 17.5 to 15, and then removing excise duty. We say it's a good gesture, but we'll continue to negotiate with government to get more, because we believe that if taxes could even go by 10%.
How then do we solve this debt that senior is demanding? Because we need to pay them.
You see, the challenge with Ghana's debts normally is not even how much we are collecting. Let me point out something. The toll debt levy has been collected for over 12 years. We did our calculations, and that alone is generating over 104 million Ghana cedis each year, the toll debt levy alone. And so assuming toll even owed $1 billion at the start of over 12 years, we would have finished paying. But as we speak, toll debt is rather rising. And so it's not how much we collect, how much we even manage these. And I have said that most of these debts that the consumer is asked to pay for another day, they are monies we have even paid for 5 years ago. Because in this country, as far as some of us know, per the price build-up, there has never been a price, build-up situation where you have negative figures in there. They sell fuel to recover costs. Government is able to get its taxes also duly paid. Government will now come to an agreement with the supplier, the PSPs, that, look, instead of 4 cedis, 50 pesos, sell at 4 cedis. We'll pay you the difference of 50 pesos. At the end of the month, if the difference is about 20 million Ghana cedis and government has collected 400 million Ghana cedis, government will rather renege on the 20 million that it has to give out, and it builds up 1 month after the other. So before the end of the year, Nana, you come to over 200 million cedis. And then again, after government has collected all those monies, failed to pay what it should have paid earlier, 2020, to offset whatever, the 200 now becomes a national debt, and it has to be shared again. Something we had paid for 5 years. So for some of us, it is not much of how much is collected, but how prudent the 1 peso, 2 pesos, 10 pesos is being used for. If it is not being used prudentially, then trust me, Nana, we can even be asked to pay 100 times more than we are paying for. There will still be more debts. So we are asking that if the government would be able to manage the sector judiciously, monies that we pay, if it is the toll debt that needs to be ring-fenced and the financing options are put in there, do that so that whatever interest accruals could be taken care of without the debt escalating beyond, reasonable heights. Last time I checked, it was 350 million. You check again, 450. It's gone to 600. It's about 850, 900. You don't even know who is telling you what. Meanwhile, as we speak, Ghanaians are still paying. And so it's not much of how much we are paying, but how much those monies are being used for. Today, as we speak, per the little we know, if government is doing 23 million Ghana cedis daily in petroleum receipts, you can imagine what it means monthly. 690. And so therefore, if government decided 690, I have removed about 40 million. Let me do another 100. I'm sure taxes could still come down, but like I indicated, the first gesture is a good one. Government acknowledges that fuel prices was quite too high. It had to do something about it. And so you find the Honorable Finance Minister throw in that gesture to say we are reducing some of the taxes. But again, we will go back to... So we are
hoping the cedi doesn't play up so that you benefit.
Exactly. And even if the cedi stabilizes, we will still be discussing taxes in the country again.
There's a school of thought that says, listen, we are artificially holding this cedi at 4 cedis and all this, and that its real value is probably 6, 7 cedis and so. Let it fall to wherever it is, and then we work from there.
Nana, if we allow cedi at 6, even at 4, if Ghanaians are paying almost 20 cedis for fuel, you can imagine what happens when it goes to 5. It goes to 5, 6. The net effect will be gross on all of us. And so we have said that the government should be able to do what it can, at least to halt the fast depreciation of the cedi, to be able to give the importers a lot of confidence as to I'm bringing in the product, I won't finish selling, and I have forex losses on my books. We think the government should continue to work to arrest the cedi. But that is only one of the 3 key variables. If taxes also continue to be neck-breaking, the cedi could be as strong as anything. But if the product itself, actual cost is 10 cedis, and I end up paying 20 cedis for the product, could I have paid 12 cedis? Nana, those are, I mean, very valid questions. Could I have paid 11 cedis when the product XREF is actually 10 cedis? Could I have paid a cedi or 2 cedis more, 3 cedis? Could I have paid maximum 4 cedis to be able to get a gallon? But unfortunately, by the time you are done, you're almost paying double the amount of the cost, actual cost of the product. Those are some of the things that we think the price build-up would need to be scrutinized carefully. If something could be done immediately to bring relief to consumers, we will be happy. But if we need to go through, I mean, the long haul to be able to get reductions here and there, the current pump prices are not funny. And I know a lot of Ghanaians today, as they are buying fuel, are still complaining, though at present, fuel prices have dropped by some 1 to 2%. People are still complaining. I mean, very, very high. And we think something more needs to be done to bring fuel prices
but one would
down.
say, running out of time, just 30 seconds, but one would say that that's the easy way for government to scoop up money. I mean, the UK does what, like 80% on taxes, on fuels, about 80%. So if you buy 10 cedis, 8 cedis.
There are also countries like Venezuela where you fill your tank for next to nothing, $0.01.
I like
there are countries
I like the Venezuela.
There are countries like even neighboring Nigerians who we co-import products with, Nana. You would realize that for the same vessel that brings product to Ghana, taken to Nigeria, we are selling at $0.94 a litre. Nigeria does $0.46. So what is wrong with Ghana?
Wow. 024-366-2001. 024-366-2001. And that's Tanti's Fashions. They make my shirts for the show, and they're running a huge discount. Your code word, PM Express or Nana, and you get a huge discount. So give them a call and get your discount. Thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow we're back to do this all over again. Thank you very much, Duncan.
Thank you, Nana.
Say thank you to Yao for directing, Aisha for production, and hey, tomorrow we are here to do this again.